Good evening and welcome to the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club Monday Evening TechNet. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo. Name's Jim. I'll be net control for this evening's TechNet. Looking for check-ins. Anyone wanting to check into tonight's TechNet, please call now.
Good evening, Jim.
Early, Mark in Loveland.
November 0, Echo Mike Papa. Greg in Fort Collins with Debbie, K0DBE. And it's our 30th anniversary today.
Oh, we had a double there, but good evening, Greg and Debbie, and congratulations. How are you guys doing this evening?
Just got back from Outback Steakhouse, and they had nice air conditioning, and our house stayed cool enough today that we're doing well.
That's good to hear. Today there's a record high, and for Colorado, I think I said down at the airport where it's measured was 98 degrees, and old record was 96, so some areas hit 100 today. But glad you're doing good. Also had Mark, W2MIC. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening. Oh, I'm finding lots of good reasons to stay in my unfinished basement where the year-round temperature is about 64 degrees Fahrenheit. I did sneak up and look out the window at my thermometer, which read 98, and I'm pleased to report that I then went back in the basement where it was cool.
Yeah, that sounds about like my day. I'm glad I decided to put my shack down in the basement in my office down here. So, like you said, constant 65 degrees down here year-round. Glad you're staying cool. Anyone else wanting to check into tonight's TechNet, please call now.
KF4DUS, Horsetooth, Mike.
AK0DX, Jeff Broomfield.
Yeah, two in there. Mike, KF4DUS, how you doing this evening?
Well, I'm just out here playing with my dog. Starting to cool off out here, but it'll be lots cooler in the house. It's a half dugout, so it's about 72 in there most of the summer. KF4DUS.
Yeah, glad to hear you're doing good and enjoying outside playing with your dog while it's still cool in your house. Also had, I believe it was AK0DX. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, this is Jeff, AK0DX. I'm doing good. Just trying out the new HT here, the 3DR. This is the first contact with it, so hopefully it sounds okay. And just playing, coming up to speed on the how to connect all these rooms and trying to figure out how to set up a DMR radio. But so far I've got D-Star and I'm coming up to speed on System Fusion, and now I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate all the rooms and tie them all together. So back to the group.
Yeah, you're coming into the repeater pretty good. A little bit of static in the background, nothing major, but your audio is a little bit light. I don't know if you can try and hold the radio a little bit closer to your mouth, or I believe you said it was FT2, you can adjust the mic gain a little bit. Might want to go up 1 or 2 on that to get a little bit more audio into the repeater.
Okay, I bumped the mic gain up to level 7, so that was the factory default. Hopefully that helps a little bit. So this is my first time on the TechNet, so back to the group.
That definitely helped your audio level quite a bit there. Thank you for checking in. Anyone else wanting to check into tonight's TechNet, please call now.
Kilo Echo 0, Sierra Oscar Romeo, Mike.
Evening, Mike. How are you doing this evening? Hopefully staying cool.
Well, I wish I could say that, but I'm working on my fifth wheel, so it's not a cool job.
No, those usually aren't, especially in hot sunlight because they turn into an oven inside.
Yeah, and unfortunately I'm doing inside work, so it's a little toasty in here.
Well, have fun with that, and hopefully you're drinking a lot of water. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo, net control for this evening's NCARC TechNet. Looking for check-ins. Anyone wanting to check into tonight's TechNet, please call now.
November Whiskey 0 Uniform, Ron, Fort Collins. Kilo Echo 0 Uniform, Foxtrot Juliet, Tim, northbound 25.
They had two of you in there. I believe it was NW0WU.
W0U.
Okay, I had an extra W in there. There's doubling station KE0. I did not catch the suffix in time to write it down. Please come back.
UFJ, Uniform Foxtrot Juliet.
After that, KE0 UFJ. Anyone else wanting to check into tonight's TechNet, please call now. Hey, hear nothing, we'll move on. We will take check-ins anytime during the net. For those of you that are just listening and not checked in yet, or for those that tune in a little bit later. Anyone have any questions for the TechNet this evening? Yeah, hear nothing. I'll bring something up that I've been hearing a lot about on some of the Facebook groups and people asking questions on test equipment and troubleshooting equipment and installing new equipment, what they should test for while installing. I know me, I always try and primarily tell everyone you need a multimeter and some type of SWR meter, whether it's just a regular straight SWR meter that you connect in line or an antenna analyzer, something to check to make sure everything is functioning properly. I know a lot of people claim that if you install a VHF, UHF radio in your vehicle, you don't really need to check the SWR. I find that hard to believe, even though 9 out of 10 times, yes, your SWR might be correct, but that 10% chance that it is not, you do not want to destroy a radio. Question for everyone on the net: what type of SWR meter analyzer do you prefer to use? Anyone have any comments?
DUS.
Horsetooth. Mike, go ahead.
I have one meter. It was one of my first meters. It depends on me flipping the forward and reflected switch. And then I found these Daiwa cross needle meters. I got one for just about every bandwidth. And I like to see things all at once, forward and reflected. I don't like flipping a switch, so that's just my preference. KF4D West.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. I don't like setting up multiple different pieces of equipment at multiple times to test something. I want to be able to connect it and test as much as possible without having to reset anything. I like my base radio. I have the SWR, reflective power and everything all connected to it, so it's always constantly connected. It's not very efficient to take it out and connect it to a mobile radio or anything else, but I have done it a couple times just to check different stuff for some people. I know for quick testing, I like using my antenna analyzer for testing SWR and bandwidth of an antenna. Gives you a lot of options to scan the frequency or scan for center to check your SWR range and frequency range, just to see how wideband the antenna is, even if it's a single band. It's nice knowing if you can go from one end of the band to the other and still be safe on your SWR without having to retune anything or use the automatic tuner. I know I have a few antennas that do require to tune in between the lower portion of the band and the upper portion of the band. Even trying to tune in the center of the band, it does not like it. Towards the far ends, SWR gets a little higher than I like. I usually try and keep everything 1.6 to 1 or lower. I've been fairly lucky with a lot of my installs, keeping them low. Anyone else have any questions or comments for the net?
MIC.
Mark, go ahead.
W2MIC. Oh, I have lots of opinions about antenna analyzers. I have one of the original MFJ 259 analyzers, which will do HF and VHF. It is a twist the dial, set the frequency, write down the SWR in your notepad, twist the dial a little further, change the frequency, write down the SWR, and after you get 20 or 30 measurements, you retreat back to the computer and you type all these numbers into Excel and you get a graph. Okay. And let's see, I also have a wonderful little analyzer, which is the Mini 60S. That's Mike India, November India 60 Sierra. It is a $100 antenna analyzer. It does 1 through 60 megahertz, 60 megahertz. It's about $100 on eBay. It is intuitively easy to use. I am told that it will actually talk to an app on Bluetooth and run on your Android phone to give you curves. I haven't quite mastered how to do that yet. It's not terribly convenient to use. It's the same set the frequency, write down the SWR, set the frequency, write down the SWR, but at $100 and it fits in a man's shirt pocket, it is to die for. I'm going to drop it and come back here. And then the love of my life, the Rig Expert AA600 Alpha Alpha 600, which does HF 160 through 10 and and UHF, 70 centimeters, and pretty much everything in between. And it understands what bands are, so you can say, well, I want to measure simultaneously the SWRs on 5 different bands. And oh boy, for tuning a multi-band antenna where you're trying to tune, let us say, 10 meters and you just screwed up 30 meters, that is a tremendously nice feature because you can work on one band and make sure you're not screwing up anything else. Not cheap, about $600, and I'm never going back. Back to net.
Breakity broke.
Break, go ahead.
Yeah, W0LEV, breakity broke is kind of my signature. Less expensive than the MFJs, which are inaccurate as all get out. You can buy yourself for about $200 a very accurate vector network analyzer. It will do S11 and S21, SWR, swept measurements, so on and so forth. See who makes this. It's AAI, which evidently stands for Accurate Agility Instrument. Yeah, it's Chinese, but it's real. You can even move the measurement plane out a piece of coax if you want to calibrate it with open short 50 ohms. It will do vector measurements, and it's quite accurate. Nice piece of gear from 1 megahertz to 1.3 gigahertz, so it covers 1296 as well. The number is N as in Nancy, 2061, 2061, SA as in Sierra Alpha. I just got it today. I love it. W0LEV.
Thank you for that. Definitely sounds like it's a one in everything piece of equipment, essentially. I know me, I use my analyzer, I use the Comet Mark II 500 CCA that does the sweep and everything, and it's 1 megahertz through 500, so it does all HF, VHF, and some UHF frequencies. I can go all the way up to 440, testing everything, which has done me just good for a single analyzer, which I'm always looking for something better. Might be checking into that. I know.
Yeah, well, the problem with the MFJs and otherwise, with the exception of the Rig Expert, they're plagued with errors. They're not very accurate, and they'll give you erroneous readings. This bugger is just sweet. I won't say it's as good as the HP Vector Network Analyzer that I have, but I'll tell you, for an instrument you can take out to the feed point of the antennas, it's pretty sweet, and it's less than the MFJ error-prone analyzer. W0LEV, back to the woodwork.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone else have any comments or questions for the net? Please call now.
UFJ?
UFJ, go ahead.
Yeah, can somebody walk us through, maybe for those who are less technically inclined, kind of what using one of these looks like? I think about an antenna analyzer, and I'm thinking, geez, do I get alligator clips, or does it screw into some unit? I just can't even visualize how this would unfold.
For 160, 80, and maybe 40, yeah, you can use clip leads, but there on up, you probably should connect directly. I won't go into a tutorial here. I need a whiteboard. W0LEV.
For the most part, for antenna analyzers, or even the SWR, for and reflective power meter. They connect to the coax. Analyzer, you can connect to antenna only. You don't need any type of power source to test. It is all self-powered, self-contained, so you don't have to worry about connecting dummy loads or anything to a radio because you're not using the radio. You connect it direct to the coax feed line to the antenna. The dual-use reflective or radiant power and the SWR meter, you connect in line, meaning you'll have a short jumper coming from your radio into the meter, and then the feed line coax coming out of the meter to the antenna. And with that style, you key the radio up and talk, and it shows you what the SWR rating is, along with your reflective power output. Anyone else have any comments they would like to add? And going back to the analyzer, a lot of them give you the option to where you can sweep a band or frequency range, and it'll show you, either give you a graph or a way to connect it to a display. If it doesn't have a built-in display, that'll show you a graph with what the SWR is at individual frequency ranges. Say you want to tune it for the 20 meter band and start out at, say, 14.125 megahertz and go all the way up to 14.350 megahertz. It'll give you your SWR range between there, which will generally be, most of the time you'll have the dip in the center, say around 14.250. Might have a low SWR reading, and then it'll gradually go up towards the upper end of the band and go up towards the lower end of the band.
And UFJ?
UFJ, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a relatively new ham, and it's an area where it's like I keep on hearing about ways I could use it, but it's one of those, before I go sink some money into an investment, I just want to learn a little bit more about I guess, do I need a degree for this, or is it something I can pick up through the instructions? Thank you.
Yeah, majority of the analyzers are fairly simple and self-explanatory to use from the instructions. You get into some of the higher end ones, what LEV was talking about, they're a little bit harder to use. You do need to have a little bit of understanding when you get into some of the other stuff, but as far as the basic SWR meter or antenna analyzer, they're fairly simple to use.
MIC K0DX.
Hey, we had a double in there. MIC Mark, we'll go with you first.
W2MIC. The good news is that every antenna analyzer I've ever heard of has numerous reviews and how-to videos on YouTube.
That is correct. Good old YouTube University, which they are fairly good on their antenna analyzer uses. The doubling station, AK0DX, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quickie, Mark. Beware snake oil on YouTube University. Some are good, some are off the wall. W0LEV.
Roger that.
AK0DX, go ahead with your comment.
From Long. This is Tracy with a comment.
Okay, this is Jeff, AK0DX. Yeah, I think they're vector analyzers. They really help us trim the antennas. This is for more newcomers and starting out. Because I didn't use a vector analyzer for the first 30 years of ham radio. It was just basically you cut the antenna to the length and you measure the SWR, and then you have to experiment. You make it extra long, and then you have to go extra short, and then it may take a few cuts and tries to get the SWR down, and then sometimes you'll cut it too short, and then you have to lengthen it. And then the nice thing about the analyzer, it kind of gives you a curve, and then you can kind of estimate, how to trim the antenna more efficiently. And but that's for basic antennas. And then it also helps with if you're doing a lot more advanced stuff. But for basically that's basically will help you quite a bit there. But for beginners and stuff like that, it's not a mandatory tool, but definitely a nice to have. Back to net. This is AK0DX.
Yeah, definitely. There seems like a lot of equipment to buy, but it's stuff that you can use forever. There was a doubling station in there a little bit ago. Sounded like it could have been from the courtesy tone and Echolink station. Please call again.
November 3, Fox Tango, Tracy in Longmont.
Hey, Tracy, do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to check in, and I have I'm using a tuner for my HF rig, and I guess I'm just lucky the G5 RV I got from my Silent Key neighbor is already set up, and my dual band for the VHF UHF antenna is already set up too. So just having a tuner and seeing reflected power is pretty good. It's been good to me for 10 years or more.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot of good reviews from the G5 RV antennas, even out of the box and not really needing much tuning-wise to start with. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo net control for this evening's NCARC TechNet. If we have any additional questions or comments for the net, please call now.
Yeah, one additional comment, please. W0LEV.
LEV, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the big unspoken advantages of any of these, minus the MFJs, which are error prone, and some others, you don't need to put 5, 10, 15, or 20 watts out to the antenna. You don't need a transmitter. They typically source at or less than a milliwatt of power, 0 dBm. So you're not going to interfere with anybody. That's generally not pointed out, but they're self-contained. You don't need a transmitter and multiple watts.
Yeah, definitely. That's something not many people mention is they do not put out much power at all. I know mine, I think it's a 5-volt internal battery, or 5-volt capacity, a couple AA batteries, not much at all, and like you said, only about a milliwatt of power going out to the antenna, which batteries in the analyzer, self-contained analyzer, last quite a while. Anyone else with any questions or comments? And Here, nothing. We'll move on to another piece of test equipment that I feel is very important for everyone to have and understand how to use is a multimeter. They are very beneficial in a lot of different areas. I know a lot of people build battery backup systems for their radio for emergency communications and running on solar power and a lot of different aspects of knowing what your radio uses as far as amp draw and voltage is a definite benefit to knowing how to properly build your emergency power backup system. You know, knowing a lot of people will say, well, my radio only draws 5 amps when I'm transmitting. Is that at low power, high power? A lot of different things to play with. I know a lot of people say that they built it for emergency communications at low power. I always recommend building it to be able to run your equipment at full power, unless of course you're running a 1500 watt amplifier. Then you don't really want to try and build a system that'll keep up with that, 100 watts or less. That way you know you're effectively getting out. Anyone have any questions or comments for multimeters?
AK0DX.
DX, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the main thing that really helps, a multimeter really helps when I'm working around the shack, is just checking the continuity of wires. You know, when you're making, you're running the wires between cables, and to save money, you make your own cables, and just making sure you get the polarities right and stuff. The ohm meters on those, most multimeters, it saves a lot of time to test out when you do make your cable. So it's been so I definitely use it more as a continuity checker, almost more than I do check the voltages. Back to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I've done that quite a few times. I usually try and run different color wires, but there are times that I'm running short and want to get something connected and don't feel like going and buying more, and I'll end up using the same color wire and making my own harness type thing with everything enclosed, and then end up having to test continuity and marking the ends of the wires so I don't get them mixed up further down the road. Well, that is a definite good use for a multimeter. Any other questions or comments? Please call now. Okay, hear nothing. Going a little bit more. I know for me, using a multimeter, I know this past field day, I was out testing stuff for field use and decided to buy a cheap solar panel kit from Harbor Freight just to do some testing to see how good it worked and how efficient it was, and everything else. Ended up using multimeter for testing the actual output of the solar panels while in use. They claim it's 100 watt output and 20 amps. I wasn't full sunlight, so I have to kind of take a little bit away from that, but I was able to test it and did some other stuff and ended up getting a reading of 14 amp output to the battery, which is, in my opinion, for something that's cheap from Harbor Freight, was fairly good for everything. The complete kit that came with everything. They do have a lot of purposes other than that, checking the amp draw for your equipment, your battery voltage if you are running battery, like we mentioned, continuity between batteries, checking the resistance in your cabling. If you notice something starting not to work quite right on your radio, you think it's a loss of power, you're able to check the resistance in the wiring, make sure the wiring isn't bad, or if it's the actual power source. Another good use is mobile installs. You can check what the actual power is if you're building a plug-and-play type radio for different vehicles and you're using a cigarette lighter plug. You can always check the cigarette lighter to make sure it is the voltage that you need for your radio. I know some vehicle manufacturers have resistors in line for the cigarette lighter plug and actually decrease the voltage, and you always want to make sure you're running the correct voltage for your radio. Never really want to go below 12 volts of power if you can avoid it. There's a lot of different uses, and understanding the multimeter and the different settings to make sure you don't break it while you're using it on the wrong setting. This is Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo, net control for this evening's TechNet. Do we have any other questions or comments for the net? Please call now. Anyone have any questions or comments in general for test equipment, install, anything ham related? Please call now. Hey, hear nothing. Do we have any late check-ins for the net?
Kilo Echo 0, Uniform Juliet Whiskey, Terry and Loveland with a late check-in.
KE0 UJW. I believe you said your name was Gary. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well, thank you. And I am a new ham, and I do have a question. Any recommendations on an SWR meter for a handheld dual band 70 centimeter 2 meter radio?
For testing the antenna, I always like SW or the antenna analyzers. I know for the handheld HT antennas, you do need to also include an adapter to go from the PL259 or the Type N adapt that are usually on the analyzers to the small SMA connectors that are on the HT antennas. You can pick them up fairly inexpensive, and you can always find someone close to you that has one that can do testing for you. That's the only thing you're using it for. Anyone else have any comments?
I apologize, as I should have added, I am experimenting with some handmade antennas, and that's why I'm looking at an SWR meter pretty much for that purpose. Back to that.
Okay, yeah, it's makes a little bit of a difference. I mean, I would still recommend something along the lines of an analyzer, something that you can do the scan and graph of to see where it is resonant, which gives you an idea of if you need to make the element shorter, longer. Give you a lot better readout on what you need to do. I know Rig Expert's one of the better ones for analyzers that are up there in price. A lot of times you can pick up some of the Comets fairly inexpensive. Maybe you're still looking at a couple $100 range. As far as just a plain SWR meter, if you just want to connect it through the radio, you can get some of the cheaper ones for under $100. But if you can afford it, I would definitely recommend getting an analyzer for doing testing for homemade antennas and that, if you're doing a lot of experimenting with them. Anyone else with any comments in regards to the question? Please call now. That give you a little bit of insight there, Kerry?
Yes, it did, and I do appreciate it. Being new to this, it's pretty exciting, and I really enjoy listening to these tech nets. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the question. I know I do a lot of experimenting with different types of antennas and stuff. I know I always use the analyzer for testing everything. Like I said, doing the sweeps on the antenna helps a lot, gives me an idea of where it's resonant and if I need to make it shorter, longer, or what I need to do to adjust it and where I want it to be in tune at in the band. KA6ETE, net control for this evening's TechNet. Do we have any other questions, comments, or late check-ins for the net?
WW8L, late check-in.
We have AW8L.
8 Lima, Tim and Windsor.
Good evening, Tim. How are you doing today?
Bad, just down in the home office.
Thank you for checking in. We have any other comments, questions, or late check-ins? Please call now.
KE0OXS Kilo Echo 0.
This is KE0OXF. Had a little bit of break up there at the end. You have any questions or comments, or just a late check-in?
Just a late check-in. I had a brain failure. Couldn't remember the rest of my letters. Sorry about that.
No worries here, but thank you for checking in. Any other questions, comments, or late check-ins? Yeah, here nothing. I'd like to thank everyone for checking in this evening to tonight's Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club Monday Evening TechNet. As a reminder, the NCARC ClubNet is Wednesday evenings at 6:30 with early check-in starting at 6 p.m. On this repeater, like say 7-3. Hope everyone has a good evening and stays cool during this warm weather today. Have a good evening, and repeater is now open for normal use.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.